Brightside success. Present.
The Richest Man in Babylon.
Summary of the book The Richest Man in Babylon. Comprehensive and interesting summary. The dream of fabric wealth and access to the trail of monetary freedom is the dream of many individuals throughout the ages, and even these days, sensible individuals and folks with robust ambitions are trying to find the secrets of the monetary world to realize their ambitions, hoping that they'll notice within the books of cash and business provided by consultants what helps them perceive ways in which to realize material resource. Since you are listening and watching this video, you'll have an interest in reading the outline of the book The Richest Man in Babylon. As a result, you do not have long to scan the complete book. Otherwise, you desire an outline of the book to grasp its content to create certain its value sometime before you opt to truly scan it. Anyway, you're in the right place. Today, we are going to gift to you an outline of the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, in an easy, straightforward, and conjointly comprehensive manner, in order that through this outline you'll be able to access all the essential points mentioned within the book. We are going to gift all this to you in a very straightforward, simple, and fun manner. Let's start with the book summary
The story
of The
of
Richest
the book,
Man in
The
Babylon.
Richest Man in Babylon.
This book was written by the Yankee businessperson George Clason in 1926, and therefore the author was curious about explaining in his book The Richest Man in Babylon. However, a non-specialist man will notice how to enhance the amount of his monetary life and eliminate his accumulated debts in a very sensible and realistic manner from at intervals life daily, to supply a group of tips that are appropriate for each time and place, and not the traditional town of the city alone. The Richest Man in Babylon is split into a bunch of chapters, every containing fun and attention-grabbing story in the
History
ancient
of
city,
the traditional
however
town
nice.
of Babylon.
The history of the traditional civilization of the city dates back to concerning 8,000 years past, and the city is the town throughout the ages that lived in prosperity and material prosperity. Its individuals were ready to attain this nice wealth. However, it's terribly stunning that the city was settled next to the Euphrates River in a very flat, barren vale, and it failed to have any of the natural resources from forests or mines of precious metals, and even no stones for building houses. Even the rainwater wasn't enough to grow and irrigate crops, and the city was conjointly not a large industrial town, because of its lack of a privileged location that qualifies it to try and do, therefore. The writer-martyr Clason says in his book The Richest Man in Babylon. Babylon was a fabulous example of man's ability to realize nice goals by any means that out there to him, and everyone the resources that supported this nice town were from the event of the man himself, and everyone its wealth was semi-synthetic. The natural resources in the ancient city were diagrammatic in two main resources. Fertile land. Watercourse water. Man has created in the city a beautiful model of excellence and exclusivity that makes the USA all stand before him in feeling to ponder that nice scene. The Babylonian engineers created the biggest engineering accomplishment in history, which was to remodel the river's watercourse through dams and huge irrigation channels. The river's water crossed into the fertile land of the city. As a result of this large irrigation system, overabundant
The
crops
story of the
appeared
richest
throughout
man
the
in
year.
Babylon.
The events of the book revolve around Bansir the chariot maker in the city. United Nations agency was sitting terribly annoyed wanting with nice unhappiness at his humble home, and therefore the shoe workshop during which he makes lovely shoes for the wealthy. Bansir, like many of us, has invariably unreal of changing into an upscale man and has been operating exhausting for several years. He and his friend Kobe, a musician, nonetheless neither of them will create that dream return true, and that they will barely meet their basic desires. Kobe met his friend Bansir, and they were puzzling over the story of why they failed to get enough cash, and failed to notice the dream of fabric wealth, despite the fact that they sleep in the gorgeous town of the city, packed with nice material resource and treasures. Kobe steered to his friend Bansir to travel to Arkad is their friend since childhood. However, Arkad is the richest man in the city, distinguished by his wise and extremely humble temperament and his love for serving to others. Bansir, Kobe, and a few alternative friends gathered, and they visited Arkad to search for the key to achieving his huge wealth. The way they'll become wealthy like him. To welcome Arkad to his friends need to find out the secrets of constructing wealth, so begins to elucidate the principles and rules of handling cash to them, and tells them the story of his success and accomplishment of his huge wealth. This is despite the very fact that Arkad wasn't within the past academically superior to his friends, or the son of an outsized and vital family. However, he was just like the remainder of his friends from a bourgeoisie family. However, what distinguished him in his youth, his intense need to realize immense wealth, also is his belief that he will do therefore by learning the proper path, and perpetually try towards achieving his goals. Arkad begins to elucidate the foundations of handling cash to his friends through 7 principles he calls the 7 principles of overcoming empty wallets, explaining to them that if they require to grasp one thing, they need to possess 2 basic elements: the time, the study. This is what he did in his youth. Once he needed to realize a large fortune, to get pleasure from an expensive life during which he gets everything he dreams of. Therefore he began to check ways in which to realize wealth and apply them and learn from his mistakes on every occasion he fails to achieve that goal.
The 7 principles for overcoming empty wallets. Guideline 1. Start filling your wallet.
Arkad cleared up for his companions that the primary method for getting cash in overflow is to begin saving somewhere around 10% of your absolute pay, whether it is month to month or week by week, before you begin paying your commitments and obligations under the name that you should pay yourself first before you pay to other people. The method for paying for yourself is to save 10% of your complete pay, and to regularly practice it on a continuous premise, and it doesn't make any difference here assuming your pay is little or huge, yet by applying that rule you will begin the initial step on the way to making riches. Then, at that point, Arkad said that abundance is produced using a little seed, and assuming you deal with it, it will develop and succeed with time. Then, at that point, after you save 10% of your pay, you partition the excess 90% on your costs, commitments,
Standard 2.
and essential
Control
necessities.
your spending.
Arkad guided his companions to the need to decrease spending on pointless or fundamental things, which can be shed, as well as not to mistake essential costs for individual longings, for every one of our cravings as people have no restrictions. Furthermore, similarly as we today, in the 21st years, need to possess costly cell phones and vehicles that cost more than various seasons of the pay we get, we are compelled to do bank acquiring, so we can meet those wants that are not equivalent with the pace of our material pay, so we fall into a snare to live to pay the regularly scheduled payments since we purchase what we don't have. Individuals of Babylon likewise had many longings for gems, rich adornments, and delightful and costly garments brought by dealers from Phoenicia, as well as emerald-studded shoes, and different cravings for which they couldn't bear. This is on the grounds that human cravings have been a vital piece of it since relic, and are not the result of present-day life. Rather, they just create with the advancement of life and the climate around him, and as per the time wherein he resides. Then, at that point, Arkad exhorted his companions that an individual ought to draw certain lines for everything in his life, cut-off points to the food he eats, cut-off points to the garments he purchases, as well as cut-off points to his time, and furthermore cut-off points to the joys he appreciates, so he can carry on with a healthy lifestyle, rather than living constrained to take care of obligations. What's more, pay for vast cravings. Then he requested that they compose on a dirt tablet all that they might want to spend for, and afterward pick just the important things inside the foreordained 90% rate to meet the commitments, underscoring that the 10%
Standard
set for
3.
saving ought
Brew
not
your
to be
wealth.
impacted. In this standard, Arkad put his companions on the primary way to accomplishing riches, as he said that setting aside cash is only the start, and that his immense abundance started after he contributed his reserve funds, and regardless of his disappointment in the principal speculation of these reserve funds and their misfortune, as he didn't put them in how the correct thing is, yet gained from this experience how to put his investment funds in a dependable manner to work to get more cash. This is by imparting it to gifted experts in the kind of exchange in which they work, and he likewise made sense to his companions that he was not happy with his reserve funds creating gains, yet rather he would contribute the reserve funds with benefits each chance to accomplish extra benefits, and consequently every time the reserve funds got back to him with the benefits he contributed them once
Fourth
again to bring him more
keep
cash.
your abundance from misfortune.
After Arkad encouraged his companions to deal with expanding abundance, he cleared up for them that the main ensured method for effective financial planning capital is to safeguard your capital through a few significant focuses. Figure out how to keep the little aggregates, and figure out how to safeguard them before you can procure the enormous totals. Try not to be deluded by enormous benefits in the event that there is a plausible of losing capital because of going into projects that you don't have adequate experience or information about. Not to go into an organization contract with any individual with your capital before you make certain of his standing and genuineness, as well as his common sense experience. Prior to choosing to put resources into any field, you ought to take a gander at the dangers of putting resources into this field and study them well. Look for exhortation from individuals who are knowledgeable
Guideline
about how to
5.
deal with
Make
cash.
your home a productive speculation.
In this guideline, Arkad guides brilliant exhortation to his companions to put resources into fixed resources, which are land, which are the best kinds of gotten and beneficial ventures, whose worth copies over the long haul. He spoke to his companions to take a stab at every one of them to claim his own home, particularly in the event that every one of them had the option to coordinate a piece of the 90% of the predefined pay-to-pay commitments and essential necessities, to putting resources into request to purchase a confidential house. This would assist with creating a financial momentum quicker. Putting resources into a decent resource is a material and moral speculation simultaneously. As well as being a decent quality material speculation, it will likewise assist you with increasing your expectation of living and move it to a superior level, as well
Rule
as give a
6.
nice life to
Ensure
you
steady
and your
pay
loved
from
ones.
now on.
The rule of guaranteeing a steady pay later on assists you with guaranteeing a good life in the advanced age, when you can't function however much during the young stage. Arkad requested that his companions consider types of revenue through which they can ensure a steady type of revenue later on. He gave them a few hints to assist them with doing that. Buying homes and land that are picked shrewdly, so their pay or the cost of selling them in the future can comprise a wellspring of stable pay for them to profit from here on out. Saving a limited quantity of cash every week consistently, then, at that point, contributing it and contributing its benefits over numerous years, and designating these reserve funds and benefits to profit from them in the advanced age when you have accomplished enormous benefits that can comprise a wellspring of
Rule
steady
7.
and solid pay
Increase
at
your
that
procuring
point.
power.
Arkad fixed the standards he created to conquer void wallets with the seventh guideline, which is the need to figure out how to bring in more cash, in light of the fact that the longing to become rich is a respectable craving, yet it isn't sufficient, and here he guided them to chip away at that every one of them master more abilities in his calling which will move him from the level of the beginner to the level of the expert master, which ensures an expansion in the possibilities getting cash dramatically from the pay. Arkad was not just the most extravagant man in Babylon and a researcher in artistic expressions of managing cash, yet he was likewise a shrewd man knowledgeable in numerous human perspectives. Its proprietors show the way that they have missed a ton of business potential open doors, which on the off chance that they enjoyed taking benefit of them, would have gotten them
Arkad
numerous
tips for
victories
dealing
and
with
benefits their
opportunities.
business. The favorable luck that everybody is searching for is the consequence of making the most of the open doors that come to you. Best of luck comes just to the people who effectively work to make the most of the valuable open doors introduced to them. Individuals who are quick to make the most of the open doors that come into their lives, and not miss them, are the ones who carry the best of luck to themselves. Best of luck comes just to the people who look for it. Positive activity all the time guarantees a good outcome and progress towards your objectives. Then, at that point, the essayist moves us to another part of the book, to show us the 5 laws of managing cash, through his story with his child Numasir. Youngsters in Babylon lived with the expectation that they would acquire the property of their families. However, Arkad wished to change this custom and asked his main child, Numasir, to demonstrate his capacity to manage his dad's abundance in a shrewd manner, and requested that he venture out far to different nations, and bear the obligation of bringing in cash alone, after his dad gave him two things, to be specific: cash and insight. He gave him a sack loaded with gold as a test so that he could perceive how he will utilize the cash, a mud tablet engraved with the 5 laws that oversee managing cash, and he was approached to execute them and advantage from them. Relying on the prerequisite that he returns following an entire decade to let his dad know what befell him, and in the event that he demonstrates to him that he merits his riches, he will acquire every one of his assets, and in the event that he can't do that, Arkad will surrender his abundance to poor people. Here starts another part in which the essayist recounts the difficulties looked by Numasir, and how he at first neglected to safeguard the pack of gold coins since he didn't utilize the tablet engraved with the 5 laws to manage cash, which addresses the insight of the most extravagant man in Babylon. Also, how these regulations helped him later to accomplish incredible riches, through numerous occasions and difficulties that he went through during his 10-year venture, until he had the option to accomplish this abundance, and return it to his dad, and let him know what he went through during these years. These are the 5 laws of managing cash. Cash comes effectively and in expanding amounts to anybody who saves essentially a tenth of his pay, to fabricate property for his future and that of his loved ones. Cash tries sincerely and cheerily for insightful proprietor tracks down an effective method for developing it, making it increase. The cash stays in the security of its cautious proprietor, who contributes it inside the structure of counsel, which is given to him by men who are talented in managing cash. Cash rapidly escapes from the hands of the individual who puts it in works and purposes that he is curious about, or the people who are proficient at saving it don't endorse. Cash escapes from the individual who drives him to harvest unthinkable incomes, or he heeds the enticing guidance given to him by fraudsters and liars, or depends for its venture on his experience and close-to-home cravings. From that point forward, the essayist moves us to different parts in which he surveys the stories of certain shippers in Old Babylon with their exchange and riches, to profit from the encounters of the ancestors, and to learn through them that the regulations that oversee cash and approaches to getting and safeguarding it have not changed over the ages, and that a book was composed almost a long time back, substantial for use whenever and any place. This was the rundown of the book The Richest Man in Babylon. Obviously not everything. The book contains a ton of science, information, and human encounters, which will significantly have an impact on the manner in which you think and manage cash. We at Brightside Success trust that our perusers' companions will peruse this important book and enlighten us with their viewpoints, as well as in the rundown we introduced to it. We additionally welcome, on the off chance that you loved introducing this sort of article, to select the books that you might want to introduce a rundown of through the remarks. We hope you liked the summary. Support us by subscribing to our channel, Brightside Success, to receive all that is new.